So that theme of onliness, I picked it in part because it was a word that really mystified me for several years in our Trillium work. And I have to admit too that I sometimes was a little embarrassed. Like, I don't want to tell people when I don't get something. I just kind of like pull back and observe thing until I might be able to figure it out for myself. That's just who I am. Some people are very forthcoming and inquisitive and able to ask questions. And I'm kind of more of I'm going to look and see if I can figure this one out by connecting dots. Because people would just use the word onliness without really defining it. And I didn't quite know what it meant. So I thought I'll just talk about that today. So if any of the rest of you, maybe some of you have never ever heard us use the word, or maybe you have and it continues to mystify you, that this might help demystify it for you. We all talk about the great mystery, but we don't have to be unnecessarily mystified by expressions if we can actually find some reference point for understanding them. So the word onliness does also, I said, it ties kind of into this theme of consciousness. So I would like to first talk a little bit about consciousness, and then lead you in a little exercise, and then I'll connect the dots back to onliness after a little bit. So consciousness, we've talked about this before, even at these sittings. It's that, and again, we use words. I love this kind of teaching story that's part of Buddhism, that these words are pointing towards. They're not actually going to be very, they're just representations of what this reality is, what consciousness is. So pointing words to consciousness. Some people call it a field. Is it a field? Not really, but it's a pointing word. It's like a field, and a field that underlies all of creation. So that's one way to understand it. Another way to understand it is that it's eternal. And this was clarified to me, but in one of the interviews, I loved this expression that I hadn't used before. Eternal doesn't mean that it goes on and on and on into the future. That's kind of making it temporal and lasting a long time. It actually has no beginning and no end. It's eternal. So not something that goes on forever, like if it's continuing. It just is eternal. And the same way, it's omnipresent, which doesn't mean like it's one thing that expands kind of out to be everywhere. It just is. It is beyond actually space. So it's omnipresent, it's eternal, but it's also beyond time and space. We use that word consciousness, which implies that there is some self-awareness there. I've heard once the expression that consciousness becomes conscious, or awareness becomes aware, or intelligence becomes intelligent. So these kind of ideas that consciousness, in order to know itself, manifested the concrete material world of change, so that it could become aware of itself through that field of change. So again, these are just pointing words. If you are completely understanding what I'm saying, then just celebrate and congratulate yourself. And if it's going like, she's kind of talking in circles here, yes, I am. And just take it in, because on some level, there's some part of you that knows exactly what I'm talking about. Always has and always will. So let that part receive these words. Again, eternal, spacious is another word that sometimes people use to describe this field of no change. So I want to lead you in a little exercise about consciousness too. Now, another thing about consciousness is that it's always present, and it's always in the present moment. It's always right here. And so exercises that I like to take people on to bring clarity to consciousness are body-centered exercises. I choose body-centered exercises because the body is only in the present moment. The mind might be ruminating on the past. It might be anxious or calculating about the future. But the body only can be in the present moment. It might be holding present moment experiences about the past, but it holds them in the present moment. So the body is a very good vehicle for having an embodied feeling, sense of consciousness, because the body is in the present moment. So let's take a moment to be with our bodies. And I'm going to invite you, if it feels right, to close your eyes. If closing your eyes would, if you're tired because you're in a different time zone, it's nighttime for you, and you might, or you've just had a big lunch and you might fall asleep, then I suggest that instead of completely closing your eyes, keep your eyes downcast. And for some of you, if you're familiar with the Zoom screen, you might even want to turn off your camera. That can be kind of a indication, a representation of closing your eyes, and bring your attention more into the body. Our visual field can be quite compelling in taking us out of our body. So closing the eyes, turning off your camera can be a way of turning within to the body. What you can also do is connect with your own breath. The breath is in the present moment. It's uniquely yours. And when you connect with your breath, there's no wrong way to do it. It's your way is the right way. You might be connecting to the rise and fall of your chest. Or you might be connecting to the air that goes in and out of your nostrils. There's no reason to change the breath in any way. Allow it to be as it is. Now, as I said before, many people describe consciousness as a field that underlies all of creation. It's steadfast, non-changing. Another thing we can do as a very simple exercise is to bring our awareness to the parts of our physical body that are in contact with what we're sitting on. That cushion, that chair, what you're sitting on. And rest into that sense of being held. Rest into that support. Just be with that sense of support. Invite your awareness to also notice the larger sense of self that you are. It's that larger awareness that has been mindful of your breath. It is that larger awareness that's been mindful of the support of the cushion or chair you're sitting on. So let that larger sense of self be there as well. Take a moment to notice anything inside that feels alive, flowing, spacious. However that's showing up for you. It could be a sense that's quite all over the body, or it might be just someplace specific. Maybe there's a feeling of spaciousness in the heart, or maybe a sense of aliveness in the hands. Again, your way is the right way. And also take a moment to notice if there's any place in your body or emotions that feel somehow heavy or contracted or constricted. And that larger space of awareness can hold it as well. That larger awareness can be like a ground of being that can hold places of contraction, emotional or physical. And we'll do one more invitation here. Invite your body, invite your larger awareness to reveal to you or show you a representation or in a direct experience of consciousness right now. And again, whatever is revealed to you is right. Our bodies intimately know consciousness. They know that ground of being. Our bodies know that ground of being. But we often overlook what is obvious. It's like that teaching story of the fish that's overlooking the water that it's in. It's so natural, it doesn't even think of the water. But if we say to that fish, if some grandpa fish comes up and says, "Hey, how's the water?" to those little tiny little minnows, they might be able to put their attention on what is there. So you would invite a sense of consciousness to be with you right now and honor what comes as a result. It might be more metaphorical. I remember once when I invited that of myself, it felt for me, the metaphor that came was like consciousness was some stream that was flowing down from above, in through my crown chakra, a kind of a liquid golden light that streamed into my body. It was a metaphor, but it was one that worked for me in that moment. So find yours. We'll be bringing this exercise to a close. But before you do, I invite you to thank your body and your body's process for whatever it was that was revealed to you today. You know, again, maybe just taking a moment to be with your breath or resting into the support of what you're sitting on. Your body let you have that. Maybe your body showed you a place of contraction. And you brought your awareness to it. So thank your body and your process. And now, if your eyes have been closed, I invite you to begin to open them. You might want to start downcast, taking in the room you're sitting in. And then for those of you that are on Zoom today, you can also begin to make connection with those that are on the screen as well. And take in the sense of this space that we're sharing collectively, this relational space of mutuality that we're here today to share. Now, I wanted to also tie this into this word onliness. I promised that I would do that too and connect the dots here. And perhaps the easiest way to do that is, again, to use a teaching story. And I'm sure it's one that most of you have heard before, but it really begins to tie into this concept of onliness. So again, we'll point first back to consciousness, that which underlies all of creation. It not only underlies all of creation, it infuses all of creation. Everything is the manifestation of consciousness, is infused with consciousness. So on that level, we used also the word non-separateness in Trillium Awakening, that there is that field that without separation, that underlies everything and every person, every tree, every rock, every star, every molecule of oxygen. It is made of nothing other than consciousness, manifested consciousness. And there's that sense of non-separateness there. And at the same time, though, there still are distinctions within that field of consciousness, the manifestation. So the old teaching story is that of the ocean and the waves, that the ocean is just made of salt water. There's no little pocket of the ocean that's made of something other than salt water. The ocean itself, maybe there's a floor to the ocean, maybe there's fish in the ocean, but the ocean is salt water. Everywhere you go, it's all salt water. And what happens, though, is that salt water rises up into distinct waves. That in each wave is distinct. It's not a big, huge, like we don't put all the waves in a blender and blend them all up. They stay unique and they travel through time, and they might curve and change and eventually will settle back down into the ocean. So it's all ocean there. It's only ocean. It's only salt water. So, but each wave rises for its own discrete period of time, its own form, its own manifestation, all just still ocean. So that word onliness is that consciousness is really all that there is, but it arises over time in many, many, many different manifestations, each that are distinct. Sometimes people, when they hear the word non-separateness in Trillium Awakening, do kind of have this feeling like, when I'm awakened and I'm one with everything, there will be all this big unity soup. You know, it's like really put it all in the big blender, the big Vitamix, spin it all together so you cannot have any distinction anymore. And they might be overlooking that they actually do have a lot of awakening already, because they're looking for uniform unity soup-like experience. There will still be distinctions. And in fact, sometimes the more awake we get, the distinctions are more apparent to us because we're so in the present moment and so out of denial that we actually see the distinctions more clearly than we might have before. So the wave and ocean analogy of onliness is a very apt one of that, the ocean, the onliness rises into distinction like that. And I think the last thing I'll just say as well is, just that sort of classic story of quantum physics about is it a wave or is it a particle? What is life? Is it a wave or particle? And what they find is that it depends on what you're looking for. So if you're looking for particularness, you will find in quantum physics to find a particle. If you're looking for a wave quality, you will find a wave quality. It depends on your point of view and your desire. In the same way, in our awakened life, when we look for consciousness, once we've just been able to identify it a little bit, we will find, that's what we'll find. And if we want to look for particularness, we will find that as well. Both are there, but all together we have onliness, because they're all everything is consciousness. Just like the ocean made up of many, many waves, only is salt water. So that was my presentation on onliness for you today, and hopefully the reminder of these teaching stories that you probably already know have been helpful for you.